So I wanted to see if I could share my screen, if this works really quickly. Let me know if you guys are seeing it. So I wanted to pull this up because we have made a lot of changes to our Palm Beach Tech website. Wanted to kind of guide people through this really quickly. If there's areas that you guys are looking to find where upcoming events are, learning about, our board, anything that you guys kind of know where to navigate through this. So our About tab here will give you a little bit about, Palm Beach Tech, our board of directors, and even some of our councils. Our councils are all of our peer groups. So for anybody that's interested in becoming a member, we actually have them set up by Women's Council, IT leaders, one for talent, like your VP of HRs, your recruiting and talent acquisition professionals, one for CEOs, startups, all of that, so that you guys can actually connect with people that are more a peer to you. Under the community tab, we actually have all of our events, Palm Beach Tech events. We have our community events, like a lot of your meetup or user groups. That was actually just newly added. I'm gonna see if I can open that up. So here you go. So this is actually all of our events. There's our workshop today. And then you can see all of the local community meetups in addition to our events. Also, something big right now is the talent piece. So this is a new section for us on the website. We actually used to have this under careers for anybody that has checked this before, but you can actually go on there now for educational opportunities at the bottom. Some of our different colleges, universities, coding schools are all being added there. That page is still at a work in progress. And then we have our career board, resume distributor. These are for job seekers. So if anybody is looking for jobs, a lot of our members, you can go right here and there's a full board of job listings. If there's not any specific job listing that you are interested in immediately on the career board, you can actually go to the resume distributor and you literally upload your resume and it'll be sent out to all of our hiring managers that have registered to sign up for this. So definitely, go on the website, check out. It's just www.palmbeachtech.org. There's a lot of other stuff on here for our weekly events, podcasts. But the last thing I want to highlight here is this big turquoise button in the top right is Join Today. So if anybody is interested, we do have our corporate memberships here on the bottom as well, but just as individual members, it's only $50 annually. You get a cool membership box, t-shirt, and then of course, anytime we do any events, our members get discounts, or if we do member exclusive events, of course, you'll be invited to those as well. But just again, to give you kind of a summarized overview of what we do is we're a tech nonprofit. We're basically working to bring talent locally here, help upskill our talent, connecting all of our colleges, universities, coding schools with our headquartered companies, and just making sure that people have the resources that they need to help building the tech community here in South Florida and staying here. Making sure that people aren't graduating and then leaving to go to another state. We want to keep you here and keep us growing the South Florida tech community. So if anybody has any questions, I'll drop my information in chat as well. And I'm always available. Monica, we've got, I think, Monica, 5 on our staff now, which is awesome. When I started, it was actually just Joe and myself. So I think we have 5 now. So we're slowly building a team, which is great. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Ashley, you can make your intro and let you take over for the workshop. Oh, I think Ashley, you're still on mute.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was awesome, Nikki. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, so sorry, there's a little oinking sound in the background. I didn't take him back down yet, but my Cody's here with me. So my name's Ashley Kays, and I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit about user experience research today and user experience design. I started this journey in technology actually as a designer. My first job was a graphic designer when I was 15, a long time ago. And I've since then worked for companies like Disney World, NCR, and now I have a coding school called Code Teachers, primarily tailored for the most part toward kids for design, maker skills, YouTube, and coding, of course. So I've been doing this for quite a long time. And there's so many interesting things that I learned along the way. One of the things that stood out the most is that if you don't do your research up front, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. So by planning ahead, you can make some key strategic decisions up front that will save you a lot of pain and time and energy. And there are a few that can circumvent and save you even more time than others. Trying to think if I missed anything. I love sharing knowledge and, making friends. So feel free to ask anytime or share anything that you know. And if along the way I bring up something and you want to know more, please just speak up. Just feel free to cut right in and ask me. So just thinking through things from a user experience perspective, one of the most, I think there's two people that do a great job right now of really explaining how to create amazing products. And one of them is Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And he talks about really focusing on why you're doing something and who it's for first, rather than just creating a product and then saying, here it is, this is for you. And then, of course, Steve Jobs, by starting with the customer experience and working our way backwards, he created, these amazingly beautiful machines that previously were kind of like cold boxes that sat on our desks, among many other things. So user experience really encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, everything from its services, its products. You can think of customer experience from someone engaging with someone on the web or on the phone. Really all facets contribute to someone's overall feeling about your company and how you benefit them. So user experience is really about intentionally crafting the perceptions and interactions with a product or system. So don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with tons of things about user experience because you may already be user experience professionals or know a lot about it, but I feel like it's important to bring up that design thinking, which is a very popular term right now, and user experience go hand in hand. Design thinking is really aimed at the early part, which is the conceptualization and research activities, as well as making sure that you do things iteratively. So it's about making sure that, we don't just kind of plan once and then do everything and then expect that it's just going to work. It's knowing that we're going to have to do things over and over and iterate through and learn and, adapt as we go. So design thinking is a product design approach where thinking like a user is really the methodology. And the end goal, of course, is user satisfaction and user retention. So I'm going to skip a little bit ahead and just boil it down to that design thinking is really about being an empathetic person and as much as possible incorporating psychology of humans into, hold on one second, I'm so sorry. Sorry, guys. As I mentioned, I have a little pig and someone left the door open. He's never used the stairs before, sorry. Okay, anyway, sorry. So speaking of radical empathy, please forgive me. So, and one example is if you were asked to design a mid-sized sedan, what features would you put in? So does it need to have a V8 engine if its primary focus is to, move kids from soccer practice, or would you be better served making sure the back seat is roomy and the seats fold down and maybe there's a DVD player? So it's really about understanding who your audience is. With the project that I have called Code Teachers, I really have two customers because I have the parents in many cases and the child to make happy, or the teen. So I really have to understand how to create an experience for both. Parents are very interested in knowing that their child feels accepted and that they're gaining skills that are going to benefit them in the future, and that they're learning something every time. And the kids maybe are more concerned about, are they having fun, and does this make sense, and are they making friends? So it's really about making sure that we understand who our audience is. So if we asked ourselves similar questions in software testing, we can see how design thinking focuses on the needs of the user rather than just the requirements of the project. And a lot of times in the past at companies that I've worked for, it was very much about the requirements And user experience was either a kind of a box that would get checked, or they would just say, okay, well, we know what they need, we know what they want. But this is really about making sure that we really do know what they need and what they want, so that we will make sure that we create the right solution. So it's, why are we making this and who is this for? So by understanding humans, you can kind of start practicing if you don't already do this. You can pay attention to what people really do, watch how they interact with their apps. Well, I mean, not in a weird way, but, you know, just start paying attention to what the world around you is doing and how they're interacting with systems. And many times you'll find a solution to a problem that you have or a challenge that you have would solve it for many other people. And that's how a lot of disruptive, you know, software solutions come about, like media streaming and, you know, all of those type of data storage, things like that. So as a user experience researcher, you're really supposed to put on the hat of someone who's unbiased. When you work directly for someone, or when you own the company, it is hard to be unbiased. But as much as possible, you need to do a few things. One, every time you write a piece of content, write it to a particular audience and stick with that voice every time consistently, unless you're doing a dramatic shift for a reason. So in other words, if I'm going to run an ad campaign to parents, I'm going to make sure that I'm picking the same persona, which I'll get to in a moment, every time, so that it's not confusing of why I sound one way one time and another way another time. So you're kind of starting to create a brand or an understanding between you and your customer by how you communicate with them. And it's really about thinking through who you're speaking to and making sure it's not just to yourself. So you're an advocate for the person you're speaking to or for your user, and you're trying to maintain a neutral stance and gain as much information as possible so that you can make clear, logical decisions. So in traditional processes, market research is owned generally by business or marketing, and user research is owned by user experience. And then in the middle, there's some crossover between personas, which represent your user base, analytics to gain insight for both sides, and then competitor analysis. So there's some responsibility on both sides. So like I mentioned before, business case for user research. So I can speak as someone in this field that many times people think they don't have the time or money for this, so they skip this step. But then later they're kind of wondering, well, why am I not converting? Or why isn't this working? Why aren't the users happy? Or, oh, wow, we have, 100 bug tickets submitted because we took away a feature they loved, So it's really making sure that we do our research in advance, like I mentioned. So how do we go about doing this? Well, there's all kinds of research types. And in the beginning, we're really using qualitative, why, how, and then quantitative is really more of who, what, when, where, how often, how much. So I'm going to get into these research types a little bit more as we move on. But the point is really to make sure that we use research to avoid designing just the happy path where everything's, occurring in a perfect world, because that's not reality. That's how a lot of systems accidentally forget to create an onboarding experience. So if your user initially signs in and there's no data whatsoever and no instruction on what to do, we most likely accidentally created, all of our screens and our plans for someone who was already a user, who already had data, et cetera, et cetera. So by thinking through and creating a great onboarding experience, we can make sure that we connect with them and likely retain them. So how do we define the user? So we've been using the word user. We can also say human, but it's consumers, customers, employees, anyone who acts with an interface as a part of accomplishing some goal. And one of the ways to make sure that you speak to your users and understand your users is to create a persona. So a persona represents really a fictional representation of a group of people who share similar behaviors, patterns, attitudes, motivations, and challenges when they're using technology. So you can create a grouping. For example, when I used to work at NCR, one of the challenges that we were always trying to think of is how do we make the banking experience more efficient? ATMs are kind of limited machines. It's hard to make them feel very fun, other than the fact that you're getting money out. So how do we make sure that we make it as easy as possible? So when I was working with Wells Fargo, it was really about, let's allow them to enter the amount they want before they even enter their pen, because maybe they're a busy mom, they're holding their kids, they're in a hurry, or let's just make this process of choosing how much they want as fast as possible. And then we're always trying to think of ways of how we don't even need the machine at all. So we created a persona, and we actually created at that time something called a Proto Persona. So there's two types. One is based on research, and you have real information representing your users, and the other is based on some assumptions, but you're still keeping as much bias out as possible, but you can make them a lot faster. And that's what I use the most frequently because of budget, is a proto persona. So it's really a representation of a group. For example, for me, for co-teachers, it's a mom who is very interested in helping her child succeed and have fun and learn as much as possible, et cetera, et cetera. I'll show you. So the first part is really about when you're building it based on data and facts, it's really about not creating it just from an idea of a person. So that's why there really are two types. Proto personas, we know, are not based on factual data, but we're using them for a purpose. Real personas that an organization uses for a long time are based on, recruiting individuals, doing some research, and really understanding who they are, and then starting to segment the audience down into a certain group so that you can determine how many personas you need. So when you're thinking of your persona, you're going to think of who they are, how old, what's their family life look like, what's their gender, their education, things like this. And then you'll continue to use this. Like I mentioned, when you create content, you'll think of your persona and speak to them when you're writing. So the first part is really, kind of figuring out who they are. And then later you dive in a bit more and you discover a bit more about who their background is. So the more you understand their pain points, the better you're going to be able to think of solutions to solve their problems. So I'm going to move on a little bit. I mentioned motivations and pain points. This is an example of a quick persona. You have a person, usually you want to add a little bit of a human element, so you can grab a stock photo to represent your persona. You're going to give them a name and some sort of backend information, what their goals are, their motivations, and things or pain points or frustrations that they're encountering. And then the more information we have, you just want to continue to fill it in. So when you, I'm going to keep moving on from this, so now I'm going to dive into the design process to get into other types of information, because I know we only have a little bit of time today. So for user experience design, we really distill it down to 4 parts that are iterative. Discovery is the part I'm talking about now. It's who are you creating for? Defining it is about, okay, I have a little bit of information about who's going to be using it. How are they going to interact with my system? How are they going to move through what do the user flows look like? What does the site map look like in terms of the hierarchy of my pages? If it's a tangible product, it's starting to define, maybe some prototypes of what it might look like. And then develop is really about bringing it to life from a design perspective. So you're starting to, create the user interface, you're giving it some polish, it's starting to come to life. And then deliver is about usability testing and really starting to make sure that you've coded and brought it to life successfully. So I'm going to focus on discovery for now. So discovery part 1 is really about defining the goals. What are we making? Why are we making it for? Do we already have ideas about the purpose of this? And then we're going to start mapping the domains. What technologies can we use to make this thing? What technologies are we currently using? What technologies do we have access to? Who's involved? And just understanding what our constraints might be so that we don't accidentally create something that we right now can't really create. So we maybe have 2 paths. One is what we'd love to create, but we're going to put that on the board as a future iteration. And then the other is what can we really create right now with the technology and the team that we have, or the budget that we have. And then after we've sorted that out, it's really about identifying our users and their needs. So who are the main people that are going to use this product? You're going to think through their demographics, like we just spoke about a moment ago. And just kind of think through a bit about why they're going to use this. And then we'll start to create our Proto Personas as a team. And this is a really fun activity because you can start to understand, unless you already have them created, but you can start to kind of collectively put your ideas together about who you're interacting with, and make sure that you're thinking through the user needs. So then after that, you start to refine your plan. So you think through any potential issues that might you anticipate. You can brainstorm together to identify risks and, also solutions as well. And think through things like, well, what could go wrong? It's not to be pessimistic, but it's just to make sure that you don't accidentally decide to follow only the happy path. And then, just, are you missing any, are there gaps? What essential thing is possibly missing? And then we start to think through a bit about our expectations, some of the things that we'd really like to include later that maybe aren't feasible right now, and how's the public going to perceive our product, how's the team going to manage growth and scalability. And then we start to define our scope and MVP. So scope is really, one of the most crucial elements, because that determines how viable it is to get your product live. If we have poorly formed scope in advance, most likely we're going to experience some scope creep. It's going to take longer, and we might accidentally add things that don't matter to our users. As you know already, an MVP is the simplest version of a product that can be released. So we want to start there and work up. So now it's really about, okay, how do we decide what research methods we're going to use? Because there's a lot of them. So I have a few tools that I'm going to show you, but some research methods that are really popular right now. I shouldn't just say right now, sorry. That was just me looking for words to fill space. It's not that they're popular right now. These are widely used and adopted. One is called a Biometric Study. So this is really about more intensive tracking of facial expressions, brain activity. You could also use something like, I think it's Hotjar, that lets you see how a user is interacting and tracking and looking around on your site. So that's maybe a little simpler of a usage of a biometric study. This is one of my favorite ones. It's called card sorting. So you give users various cards, and you help categorize information for your website or your application according to what the user thinks makes sense. So you can do two methods. One can be completely open, where they decide, or you can give them a little bit of a framework to work with. So this will help you kind of identify what people call things, how people classify similar things. So it helps you start to understand if your expectation meets reality. In other words, are they really seeing and understanding how to find information the way you expect them to? So I'll share this presentation with you so you can take a look at that. So next thing that's a really interesting one to work with, Clickstream Analysis. This is another one that I was mentioning, another way to say the biometric without the eye tracking, but just seeing, what users are clicking on. So if you create a wireframe test, you can see, what people are not looking at, sorry, that's eye tracking, but what they're clicking on or hovering over, so you can understand kind of what, if you're sharing your most important information in the right locations. So it's really about website traffic or app traffic. Cognitive walkthrough. So this is really about paying special attention to how interface supports learning through exploring without guidance, such as first time using your system without a tutorial. So just understanding, does it make sense? Do they intuitively know what to do? Are you following the mental model of what they expect? Are you breaking a pattern that is, consistently used and users are getting confused? And collaborative and participatory designs, or I can't speak today. This is really about working with participants to construct ideal experiences. So you use design elements and you start to express what matters most. And it's kind of like a design by committee, but at the same time, you're figuring out what makes sense to include. and seeing if that's the path you want to move down. So it's a fun process. It's a great team building experiment, and it can give some insight for your final wireframes and visual design as well. So competitive analysis. I have some tools to show you on this one, because this is, I think, one of the ones that most of us want to know and need most frequently. So this is really about understanding, what are your competitors doing, and is it working for them? And if so, how, why, what can be better? So let me show you a couple tools that I have used and use actively now. One of them you may know of. It's called SpyFu. So when you're going to, let's say, decide how to market your website or your product, you likely want to know what your competitors are doing and how much is it likely going to cost for me to run this ad campaign. So if I take if I take a look at a competitor, this is one called Code Galaxy. I can see that they're 13 years old, but no results are showing up. So I'm going to move on to another one. So here I can see that they're getting most of their traffic organically. So that shows that I really need to make sure, as a strategy, that I focus on creating great content. And I'm probably going to have to look for some low-hanging fruit, some keywords that they're not targeting. So when I'm thinking through my search engine strategy, I'm going to think through what my competitors are doing. I'm going to analyze, what are they ranking for? Do I want to rank for these same things? Do I want to rank for things that they're not trying to rank for, sometimes known as long tail terms? So in other words, I'm ranking for a whole search term instead of maybe a shorter term like kids coding. Maybe instead I'm going to say kids coding in South Florida, or Python coding for kids, or things like that. So this is a really cool tool. It also gives you an idea of how much money they're spending. This is a paid tool, but you can see who the biggest paid competitors are right now: Code Wizards, Cats Academy, Boston, Code Galaxy, and you can see who they're competing with organically as well. So this isn't 100% related, but I think that a lot of user researchers accidentally forget how important search engine optimization and your content strategy is in part of your planning and your preparation, because this is really where the rubber meets the road. You know, understanding how to get visitors and eyes on your site or your product is probably the most important, sometimes painful, and also exciting thing that you can do, because there's so much excitement into building your product and figuring out who your users are and what's going to resonate with them. But then you really need to reach them. So it's really about, okay, well, how do I create a strategy that's actually going to reach my target base, these people that I understand so well? How do I reach them now? And it's about thinking through a very clear content strategy. So now they have a whole segment of user experience called user experience. What are they? Basically, it's, I'm messing up the word right now, but it's a content strategist for user experience. So it's about creating the right words, placing them in the right positions on the page to really resonate with your users, and then making sure that when they do arrive there, that you're giving them the right type of content and information so that they actually stay and find value in what you're sharing with them, and potentially, hopefully, leverage you time and time again. I spend a lot of time working on this because I had this really cool job when I was younger. I worked for a social network, and the way that they funded the social network was completely bootstrapped. And at first I was like, how on earth are we spending, you know, millions of dollars on this project every year without any outside funding? And the way that they were doing it, actually, and I actually ended up getting to take over the department, so it was a really cool learning experience. But everything was created through affiliate projects. So they had thousands of sites that would generate traffic on relevant keywords, but basically would generate traffic on all of this content, and then it would drive content to the social network, which is why we had so many users, millions and millions of users. But we also made quite a bit of revenue from our content strategy because we devised a strategy that would feed each other. So basically, sites would link to themselves. They call those deep links. Then they would link to each other, and then they would also receive valuable external links. But the whole point is that we were using content that really mattered to the user. And you can use tools like this, which is SpyFu, as well as Ahrefs, to get an idea of what terms should I be ranking for. So what should I be targeting? How much competition is there for these terms? How likely am I going to receive traffic if I actually deliver a piece of content to my audience on this term? And there's quite a bit of planning that goes into it. I'm sorry if I'm spending too much time on this, but it's something I think a lot of user experience teams accidentally forget or don't know about. So I just wanted to inform you so you could hopefully use some new insight to make better decisions in your planning there. So Ahrefs, SpyFu. Now, there's other things you can do. You actually have users on your site, you've done some competitive analysis, so you've created a product that resonates. Now you've brought traffic to your site. Now you want to understand how to better reach them. So maybe you want to move them through your funnel in a more meaningful way. You want to upsell or, continue to convert. So what do you do next? Well, you can leverage things like user surveys. One of them is SurveyMonkey. It's a very inexpensive tool, and you can do some very cool things with it. You can provide just multiple choice. You can provide, some conditional logic and things like that. I'll show you an example in a moment. But people actually are pretty fair. If they really like your product and, you've created a rapport with them, you can email your customers and ask them to give you insight into what they would like to see. And, obviously you could give them a gift or do something in return. But some people just want to tell you because they've been dying to tell you. So it's a great method to gain a lot of information. Another tool that we use, I use this a lot at Thinkful. That's a boot camp that I work for. I'm an instructional designer for data engineering and user experience and the engineering track. And we use this tool to determine whether or not we should create a course. So we want to understand what's the market need for this course. What are hiring managers looking for? How likely, if we create a course on X, are they to not only enroll, but actually get a job, from this course? So this is a great tool. There's another one like user testing that is called, where did it go? Sorry. It's a little cheaper. I think maybe it's this one. No, this is the card sorting tool. Sorry. Did I leave it open? I really want to show it to you. Oh, it's this one, I believe. Validately. So basically, you can go here and create user tests, and it's a very inexpensive tool where you can, share your prototypes. So, for example, at NCR, a lot of times what we would do is we would test really early. We'd just test on our wireframes because sometimes we'd figure out that they didn't really want that feature that we were trying to create. So we were spending a lot of time creating, for example, just to give you one, we had this idea that users would be so excited about choosing whether they wanted 50s or 20s. And we were creating kind of this cool way that they could just tap to increase the number of bills that they were going to receive. Well, users did not like that at all. They don't want to spend time at the machine. It's not a game for them. All they want to do is get their money and get away. So we spent, we had spent all this time creating this really cool, kind of iPhone-like user experience that we totally, thankfully, before we really built it, trashed because users hated it. And they many times would just say other just to avoid that screen. They didn't want to tap to choose their bills. They just wanted to enter a number or select one value. So by testing our wireframes early, we were able to save a lot of money because, there's a lot of cost and compliance and testing and things like ATM machines. So tools like this can save you a lot of money. There's another one that's pretty cool. It's called UX Pen. And the reason I like this one a lot is because you can do a couple things with it. One, you can create your wireframes and you can create conditional states so that you can show if they click this button, then this happens. So it can really simulate a real world experience. And then you could submit your creation for testing to a user base. So you can just say certain account levels, I think it's included for almost free. And then others, I think it's like $20 a test or something like that, which sounds pricey, but it can save you a lot of money and time later if you actually test it and know, this is going to work. Okay, so back to the presentation. Those are a few tools. So another tool that we used at the company, where I bring that one up because he made about $1.5 million a month on his content strategy. So I can't stress enough to you that creating and thinking through the words and the information that you're sharing with your visitors, that is, besides, them clicking a few buttons and moving around, that's all they know of you, the videos and the words that you share with others. So, and it's even harder, with this things being more and more virtual. Like, for example, for code teachers, when I sell classes in person, honestly, it's so easy. I love people, they can tell, they get excited, they want to sign their child up. But what do I do when I can't be there, and I have to use my website to sell my story? And I've noticed that it's a lot harder, honestly. Not only do they not understand, maybe the meaning and the value behind it, but there's great competitors. ID Tech is also awesome. There's a lot of other great people out there. Why me? So I really have to make sure that I think through the strategy and, share the love as I can online. So once you've, taken a look at your competitors and you get an idea of how they're positioning themselves and how they're selling it, you can see what you want to do differently. You determine, are you sharing the same primary audience or not? What are they doing? Maybe they're getting it right, maybe they're not, but at least you'll have some insight. This isn't the only thing that you want to use to make decisions, but you definitely want to incorporate it into your understanding. I used to do this thing when I was younger. It's kind of silly, but I would have a lot of cool tech ideas and I would be afraid. I'd be like, oh no, it's going to already exist. Somebody else is going to have this idea. But I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be the first one. You just have to be the best one. Or at least, if you're not the best, at least maintain, hopefully you become the best, but at least, maintain a viable competitive position, because there's plenty of room for everyone. Even in something like coding that I offer, people want to learn things in more than one way. They want to see, they're going to be interested in more than one subject. So you can, determine some differentiators, et cetera, using SWOT analysis, which, goes back to that same old tool that's been used for many, many years. So another type of research method is called a diary study. So this is where participants record information in an ongoing basis. So you're asking them to kind of evaluate over a few days or months how they're interacting with the system. Obviously, this is a little more costly and time consuming because you're gathering more extensive information and it's about a product that already exists, most likely because they need to have something to test. Ethnography is a very interesting user research tool. It's generally a little more expensive because you're really going to where people are in their natural environment. So this is really about going on site and seeing, for example, in a banking setting, how are users interacting with the machines? What does the flow on site look like? When I worked at NCR, it was kind of an interesting experience because we would actually map out the choreography of how people could move through lines faster and more effectively. Same thing at Disney World. It was very interesting how you could do certain tweaks and you could change the flow of traffic on a ride from 2,000, per hour to, let's say 6,000, but you also have to take into account many things like safety and, experience while they're waiting, et cetera, et cetera. So, working at companies like Disney World, I was able to use a whole different set of research tools, a lot of, on-site observation, as well as lots and lots of data analysis and data mining. So, we would gather information about what products were selling and why, and then measure it against time of year and, determine that actually the poncho is the best-selling product that Disney has, because it rains all the time in Florida. So Disney World, I should say. So another type of study is called a focus group. And this is about bringing in a group of people to evaluate a product, an idea, a prototype. You can use it for all different things, everything from food to, a prototype of wireframes. They can be a little more expensive, but it's very interesting to see humans that you don't know interacting with your product, and you can gain a lot of insight. So this is, I would say, bare minimum that you want to do a heuristic evaluation. So this is really about saying, can this user interact with these wireframes or these screens? Do they understand what to do? And you can leverage even your own team members for this. You can just call in like 5 people and say, hey, do you guys understand how to do this? Like, what happens here? What happens here? We used to do this all the time, and it was actually really fun. And we were, brutally honest with each other. Sometimes they'd bring us something, we're like, I don't know what you were thinking, like go back to the drawing board on this one. Or sometimes they'd be like, whoa, that was a really cool way to solve that problem. So we would leverage, each other's patterns and learn from each other. There's also quite a few sites out there that share patterns. So you don't want to break users' mental models. So you can go to sites like patterns.com and leverage patterns that users understand and expect, just so that you don't have to spend as much time onboarding or training. And I can see I'm already getting low on time, sorry. There's A/B testing, which is about comparing 2 versions of, let's say, a website or a mobile app, and seeing what engages more, what converts better. There's lots of tools out there to help you do this. ClickFunnels, Unbounce, lead pages, et cetera, et cetera. These tools can help you determine what page to put in place, and you can test them at multiple times. I already went over surveys. So rather than speed up really fast, is there anything anybody wants to ask before I run out of time? Did I bore you to sleep?
Actually, we did have some questions about some of the links.
Okay.
The one question in the chat, it's not validate me, right? It's validate Lee.
It's Validate Lee, yes. VALIDATELY.com.
Okay, I found that one. I just put that one in chat. Jojo, was there another one specifically? Because I know you said you found all the ones below that you had listed. Was there another one you couldn't find? Okay, so she's saying she couldn't find them. So I'll send you that afterwards, and yeah, we can get the links and send them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry for going fast on that. I figured we'd send links after. Let me just see if there's anything else really important. There are a few others. Obviously, I over anticipated how much I could share with you. I think it really boils down to a few things. At a bare minimum, understanding who your user is and creating proto personas. Starting with the discovery process and really thinking through the why and what you're creating, who's going to use this, why, and then also thinking through your content strategy. A lot of times when we design screens, we design them with lorem ipsum, text. That's not reality. So I really recommend that when we can, we create our pages with real content as much as possible and create a great content strategy to go with it. And then helping each other, there's plenty of room for all of us, even competitors, we can help each other because we can succeed in different areas. We don't have to succeed at everything. We can, be great at, having a user experience class or, whatever it is your subject or project is. But let me just see if there's anything else. I think that was the real core things I wanted to show you. I think just the last thing would be, if we want our users to like our software or product, we should design it to behave like a likable person. It should be respectful, generous, helpful. We want our software to make people feel better. So that's really the main gist of it. It's a lot of fun to study user experience. There are tons and tons of tools out there. I have things at Code Teachers. Thinkful has a program. I've noticed since things with COVID started that a lot of places are offering free trials or free months. So if you have an interest in this, there's definitely quite a bit of help out there to learn more about it. If you were, let's say, really interested in the pieces I mentioned in terms of the links, like SpyFu, Ahrefs, things like that, you're really going to want to look into digital marketing. So that's really about the experience from that perspective. How do you get traffic, and how do you convert traffic? There's also some really, really great training on ClickFunnels. If you're just creating a sample site and you want to see what resonates with users and you want to spend something up pretty quickly, you can leverage that tool. Let me show it to you, to test ideas quickly. So this is really about testing website ideas. You know, is this going to resonate? Does someone have an interest in this course or product? You know, what does it look like? Are they interested? Should I pursue this? If there's one thing that I've learned over the last few years, it's maybe don't try to build everything out before you find out if users are interested. Create a minimum viable product. If you're creating a course, create a minimum viable course. Don't record everything because it might not be the right fit. Even if you've done your user research, you want to test the market a bit before you spend thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. The other thing, I would say that's one thing that really stood out to me. Another thing is that you'll be surprised how often what you expect your users to want doesn't line up to what they actually want. So definitely doing that testing is valuable. Sometimes it seems so obvious, but it isn't until you ask them. So that's really it. I had fun with you guys. If anybody wants to ask anything, feel free. You can also email me, or of course, Nikki or Monica. Let me put my email back on the screen for a moment.
I dropped your website link in the chat, Ashley.
Oh, thanks.
Do you want to drop in there whatever the best contact information is that you'd like to use if anybody wants to reach out?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, I see you got it there, the email. Okay.
You can email. You can also call me, but honestly, email's the best just because everybody's busy. Let's see, stop sharing and let me just paste in chat.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of great information, and I will I'll send you that, Ashley, that if we can get the links to some of those websites.
Yes,
and then we can send up a follow-up email to everybody with that in there.
Awesome. I'll send that over to you. Thank you guys. I hope I didn't bore you to sleep. Have a great day, and thanks for coming.
Thanks, yes, Ashley. And we are recording, so I'll share that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thanks. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.